Hello, my friends. LaRuffa here with another Straight Up Solo. And in this episode, we're going to talk about solo city builders. And I'm not sure it's really a top 10 or a top anything video. I'm just going to share with you my thoughts on solo games from a city building standpoint. And it's kind of a tough genre sometimes. You know, you can clearly say, oh, that's a city builder game, that's a city builder game. But then the lines kind of obscure a little bit here and there, like what constitutes that. So the way I look at it is, yeah, a city builder is an obvious game that has, you know, commercial, industrial, residential, utilities, that sort of thing. And that is where I try to keep most of this. But then there's the town builders and such, and I said, maybe we should throw those in too. So I'm going to give you my ones that I would consider good, and then I'm going to give you some okay ones. Then I'm going to give you some that did not resonate for me, that left my collection either, you know, a while ago or a very long time ago or whatever. But we're still going to stick with the whole solo theme, of course. So every one of these games can be played solo. So let's start with the good ones first, okay? I'll give you my picks for good. And these are in no particular order. It's tough for me to kind of rank order them. They all have their positives and negatives. And I would say this, from my standpoint, I am still looking for like the quintessential awesome city builder that does it for me, right? And some of these are pretty good, but none of these are fantastic. And I wish they were. I'm still on the search for those. So if you guys have a title that I'm missing, haven't played, and like, I would love to hear about that in your comments. But anyway, let's go ahead and start with one that is an old classic, which I still think holds up pretty well. And that is Suburbia. Suburbia is a very solid city building game that uses an kind of like an offer mechanic where the sooner you buy something, the more expensive it is, if I remember. It's been a long time since I played it. I actually sold it only because I got the app years ago. But the good news about that is it stays true to the theme and it offers a lot of variety. The game itself is a very thematic feeling city builder with the residential and commercial and industrial buildings and utilities and such and government buildings. It all kind of fits together that way. Where it doesn't necessarily shine is the mechanics are okay, but there's a lot of, I would say, interaction and things like that you have to kind of keep in mind, and that can become a little overwhelming after a while or get a little bit dry. And when I am playing that game, I never really felt like I was building a major city. It still felt like a lot of tile placement. And maybe that was just me, but I do think Suburbia is one of the better ones out there that you can play from a solo perspective. And so that's why I put it on my list. Another one that kind of switches gears, which I still have and still enjoy, and you can kind of see it right back there, is Era Medieval Age. Now this one is, again, like I told you, like a loosely feeling of a city builder. It's a town builder, right? And it's more along the lines of putting together a kind of a town that's going to help you improve a population and be able to get more dice rolls and more points and different things. It's a compact, it's different. It's not like your classic, Sim City feeling game, but I did consider it a city builder. And I think that the base game plus the expansions offer a lot of variety there. And every time I've played it, I've always enjoyed it. I've always felt the fun factor shining through. And the solo mode's okay. It's not bad. It can definitely be played that way. You're kind of under the gun. It really kind of puts the squeeze on you to get done what you want to get done fast. So I recommend it. It's a fun game. And I like the whole, the fact that you grow things. It grows the dice, but the dice need more food, etc. And so you kind of get a little bit more of the supply and demand feel from that game, at least. Another one I want to talk about is definitely more of a classic city builder game that is fun, that I've enjoyed a lot. And I wasn't expecting to, but it's every time I pull it out and play it, I'm like, yeah, that's got what I'm looking for. And that is Rebuilding Seattle. Really, Rebuilding Seattle gives you a very simple solo interface to play with, where the solo mode is kind of taking away and denying options from you. And you're still trying your best to figure out when to kind of pull off these different scoring options, and the longer you wait, the more likely it is that you aren't going to be able to do them, and it's a lot of fun. Plus, it has a good, solid city thematic, right? I mean, you really are rebuilding Seattle in the idea of commercial, residential, utility buildings, government, those kind of things, industrial. And I think it's fun from that standpoint, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's pretty quick. It actually, if anything, it's a kind of a little bit of a chore to set up more than anything else, because there's just a lot of stuff to put out. But it's a good one, and one that I would definitely check out if you're into the classic or the more classical style of city building. Another one I'll tell you about is not, this one I would say is the loosest of city builders. And you may say this isn't a city builder at all, and I would respect that. But as I was going through my collection, I'm like, you know what? Frostpunk, the board game, has a little bit of that. It's a very Euro game, but it almost feels like you're building up a city, a settlement, a town, and managing more of the social side of things with the different decrees you're putting forth and the different things you're kind of sending people to do. And in a lot of ways, it's more like a survival city builder with more consequences around the policies and things you put in place. So it's not the classic side by any means, but I felt like I was building up a community in a city fashion, so to speak, with a very heavy Euro side of it. So I would say that you could take that with a grain of salt, but there it is. Okay, and then my last good one from a very classic standpoint, which I think is probably my favorite solo city builder, is going to be Small City Deluxe. Small City Deluxe, in my mind, is the closest thing that I've seen that's really fun to a good, solid city building game out there that has all the classic elements with the residential, the commercial, the industrial, the government buildings, the projects, and they all put themselves together in such a way that it does feel like a more classic approach, which I really like. That's what I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for something that makes me feel like I'm playing SimCity, but that's also fun. And this one qualifies for that. The big disadvantage, I think, of it is that you really can't play the deluxe side of anything. I shouldn't say the deluxe, the advanced side, I suppose, of the board, because as a solo standpoint, most of the things that you would do from a trade-off of taking some actions are all non-solo based. So I think they're going to try to rectify that in some future expansions, which are coming out later this year, which I'm definitely excited for and going to pick up. But there's a lot to explore there, especially when you throw in the winter expansion. So that's probably, of all the things I would say from a classical standpoint, that's probably my favorite recommended solo city building type of game. Now, here's two that I would say are just okay. And they're okay because I kind of enjoyed them, and I still sometimes do, but they don't have all of what I would say makes a good game or a great game. It's just okay. And that first one would be Sprawlopolis. So Sprawlopolis is more of a little card puzzly game. And that also, it's the same as I think it's the farm one's called Agropolis. And now I heard there's a Casinoopolis or something else. And there's other things. Those are fine. Those don't really feel like city building, so to speak, but they do have that theme, heavily integrated because you're making a little city with how you're putting the cards out. So I give that one the okay side, and it's fine for a good solo puzzle. It just doesn't necessarily fit the mold as classically as I would expect with the kind of, even like I said, with Frostpunk, that wasn't really there, but that's more of a board game and more of a builder than the little puzzle game. And the other one I would say would be Subdivision. So Subdivision, it was okay. I ended up selling it after a few plays, and maybe I sold it prematurely because every now and then I think, maybe I shouldn't have. I'd like another crack at that. Maybe I should have given it a bigger chance. But I wasn't as stoked about playing it as I was Suburbia. I think Suburbia was a better game, and Subdivision just fell a little bit flatter for me. So I would put those in the okay category. Now, here's the ones I put in the not okay, or things I just didn't like, okay? And some of these aren't necessarily bad games. Some of them are just they don't hit the mark for me for what I'm looking for, okay? And it's just a big list. I'm not going to go into all of them, but these are all games that I've had before that I would classify in some way, shape, or form as a city building type of game that did not work for me from a solo standpoint. Between Two Cities, I have never actually played the board game, but I've just played it on the app, and it wasn't even the app was not enticing enough for me to want to actually try the board game and pick it up solo, which is too bad because it looked like it'd be cool, but I don't know, something was just missing there. The biggest one that was the most thematic that I held on to for the longest time was Cities Skylines, the board game. Now that one actually was the best fit of all the themes. The problem was, in order to win that game solo, you really had to be lucky in some of the card pulls. And if the luck was against you, there would be nothing you could physically do to be able to pull off a win. And that was frustrating. Although, from a standpoint of feeling like the most classic of games, feeling like you're playing SimCity, or in this case, obviously, Cities Skylines, it did a decent job with the theme. But it just didn't provide the satisfying solo experience that I was looking for. Another game I really didn't enjoy all that much. It was just kind of blah. Is City Planner. City Planner was part of a really small group of games that were these nano games that I gave a shot to. They just weren't my bag, right? And along with that, because it incorporates some of City Planner, would be Empire Planner. That one Empire Planners. That one didn't do it for me either. Kind of incorporated some of the City Planner aspects in it because it was kind of a mashup of a few of those different things. The Colonists, I would say, maybe you could say was sort of like that because you had to account for where you're going to put people in houses and this and that. I kind of hesitated on if I'd call that a city builder or not, but I would say that game, I've said it before, I've provided a review before, it just was way too much work and bookkeeping for what I really wanted in a game. And it had the trappings of being awesome, but it just wasn't there for me. So I would say that's probably not a good choice from a solo standpoint, city builder aspect. And again, I would say that's kind of loosely there. I would understand if you say that's not a city builder, that's a Euro or something else. I get it. I could see that. Flip City, I did not find enjoyable. That was a card game. It was not for me. Founders of Gloomhaven, thought that was going to be really cool. That turned out to be a real drag. I don't know why. It just lacked the spark. The gameplay was just dull. And I sold that one pretty quickly after acquiring it in my collection years back. And pretty disappointed because I thought this was going to be really cool with buildings interacting with one another and kind of a little bit of a tech tree. Didn't do it. Minerva, dry, flat, didn't enjoy it. Neom, I wanted to like it more than I did. It never really got me. It never really gripped me for whatever reason from a solo standpoint. And I think that has some of the coolest art of all the city builders I played because the buildings just look cool and the stuff had just more of a futuristic look to it. And it was fun to look at, just not that much fun to play. Tiny Towns should have maybe been better, but I just found it somewhat limited in its fun. I don't know. There was replayability there. I just don't think I ever really liked the game mechanic all that much. And I like little puzzly games. That one just didn't fit the bill for me. And then finally, Town Center. I had that one too. I would say that was just too limited, too micro in its scope. It was more like an abstract puzzle than it really was a solo city builder. So those are the ones I have eliminated from my collection over the years. But I'm really interested to see, what am I missing? I still am on the quest to find like the gold standard for city building game. Right now, Small City Deluxe, I think, probably does it the best when you look at the pureness of theme and the fun. But maybe I'm missing something else. I'd love to hear from you about it. So thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. And whatever you do in the future, I really, really hope you have a fantastic time doing it. Take it easy, everybody.